God. Okay. Hello, everyone. We are live. We are live. I am barely prepared, and I'm Rez. And
And
as
I'm
always,
Prax.
I'm joined by my good friend Prax. How are you doing? Can you hear me, Prax?
Yeah, I
Prax,
can, I
how
can
are you?
hear
Oh God, are you
you.
okay? All right. Is
Yeah,
everything okay? All right, cool.
yeah.
There's a third person here today. We have a guest, and that is Rollin Bones Ryan of the Rollin Bones podcast, and recently acquired by Valor Studios. Is that what it is?
Yep, absolutely. Valor Studios.
Yep. He's
Nice.
a big deal now. So we're really glad to have him on our podcast here. Ryan, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Yes.
Couldn't be happier, man. It's been a great day. I'm. I had a great day. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
My day was okay. I just really quickly our uh, Prax probably already knows this, but at some point your sleep routine for your child uh, becomes exponentially longer.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, hey Wolfie, good to see you, hanging out. Um, it used to be only like 2 weeks ago. It was all right. We're just gonna get you upstairs, put you in your pajamas, read your book, put you down in your crib. We're out in a quick 10 to 15.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now it is all right. You want to walk upstairs? Okay. Now you want to brush your teeth? All right. You're gonna try and pee on the toilet. Okay. Now we're gonna get you over into your bed and get your jams on. All right. You want to watch some Cocomelon? All right. You want to read a book? Okay. Now you want to run around? All right. Now you want to lay in your toddler bed? All right. You want me to lie next to you in your toddler bed? All right. You want me to sing to you in your toddler bed? Now I'm gonna get out. Now you're gonna get up out of your bed. You're gonna open the door. You're gonna come out and say hi, Dad. I put you back in your bed. Then I have to. You're gonna do it again. And then I have to threaten to put you in your crib. And then you lay down. And then you finally fall asleep. So that is what it went to. So that's how things are now, and I'm solo right now because my wife isn't home yet. So that's why we are a little bit late.
I got one word for you, Rez, and I'm gonna channel the kid from. You remember the movie The Wizard? Remember the Nintendo game?
Yes.
Come on, guys. Yeah, The Wizard.
Mhm.
Remember the
Yep.
little kid? He's like California. So here's my word for you. Melatonin.
Okay. All right.
Bruh, we
All right.
just discovered them. Gummies. Put them out like a light.
Okay.
Even better
I'm a
than
pumper
Grandpa's
full
cough
of. I'm
syrup.
a gummies is silly. We're going intravenous. We're going
Give
straight
them,
for
yeah,
it. This is going,
gonna
I'm
mainline
giving
it.
her the melatonin
The
jab to
crack
knock her out every
spoon of
night.
melatonin. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Nuke. Good to see you again. Glad that we can be here to help you go to sleep.
Absolutely.
Try some melatonin.
Yeah, if the next best thing to help melatonin is listening to us. All right. Um, so tonight we are going to discuss. We're going to review a fantastic movie, I believe. Thank you for smoking. Let's just start it off with initial impressions, and we'll start with our guest. I think we'll go with Ryan here. Tell us what you love about the movie or how you feel about the movie.
Gotcha. So yeah, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like
Wow.
honestly, it's in my top 10, if not my top five.
Wow.
I absolutely love this movie, and it's one of the reasons why I believe that cinema achieved perfection in 2005. So
What other movies came out in 2005?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, you can't leave us hanging on that.
Sin City came out in 2005.
Okay.
That's another one of my favorites. Um, uh, Batman Begins came out in 2005, which I think is the best of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
Interesting.
And really, it's more like this is where the cinematic art peaks, and then just it's all kind of downhill from 2005.
Mm.
But if we're gonna like pull up other movies from 2005 as I
Yeah,
look around my
do it.
microphone here, it it really was like a fantastic year. I believe The Prestige came out in 2005.
Another good one.
Revenge of the Sith, which is the best of the Star Wars prequels, came out.
V for
Of,
Vendetta.
of the low
Yeah,
bar.
V for Vendetta.
Of the low bar of Star Wars prequels, it's the best. Sure.
Yep. A History of Violence came out in 2005.
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't either. That's
Yeah,
is that
it's-
Viggo Mortensen?
Yep.
Okay, I gotta watch that one. I've wanted to. All right.
Are there any libertarian themes,
Um,
or it's just a good film?
Kind of, sorta. It's about a guy who It's about like an average guy who ends up killing a gangster who walks into his diner, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
and kind of the fallout from that.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I don't know like how libertarian it is, but it's a pretty good movie.
Lord of War is pretty good. That came out in 2005.
Yep.
I haven't seen that one either, but that one seems like another one maybe to make the list at some point.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Um,
really.
I'm gonna take. I mean, we're a little off topic, but I'm taking it more as a bell curve because I love The Dark Knight, and that's 2008, and then Lord of the Rings was like 3 years before that. So I think you know, if you're gonna call it a peak, maybe it's just like barely like a cresting peak like that because you've got some
Yeah.
really great movies in the surrounding years. Now we're all the way down here basically, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
all right. Prax, you had not actually seen this movie prior, I believe, whereas both Ryan and I had. So now I'm curious to hear your take on the movie overall.
Yeah, so I had actually seen it. I remember now I picked it up on some uh, DVD stall in Shady Alley in communist China. Um, and I forgot I had watched it, and it was definitely before I had any kind of real libertarian epiphany. I hadn't really read much of anything, but I always had kind of free market and self ownership sensibilities, and that's that's really what it's a fundamental idea that you know we're seeing it now with all the overriding of natural and individual rights. How if rights need to stand in all situations at all times. So it when I watched the Thank You for Smoking, it was like this is not a good decision. To and there wasn't. You tell me what you think. I don't think there was fraud taking place. I just think there was maneuvering to put a product in good light, and I don't. I think that's just a form of marketing. At the end of the day, it's up to the consumer to do their own analysis and research on the quality of what they're using and the impact of it. So just that's how I approach consuming medical products, even to this day. To be a discerning consumer, and in the case of the cigarettes, I don't know if there was long-term data that would convince anyone that they were detrimental. I mean, I can see, I can put myself in the moment and say, like, if there was not long-term data, you could make the argument that it seems safe. Hmm. Sounds like something familiar. So, it just there's so many parallels. Like I was reading today where, like, I guess they're thinking about passing a religious freedom law in Australia. That would allow it was like private Catholic institutions to fire people who were engaged in what they would consider sinful activity, and expel students who were doing the same. And this is a certain category that some religious organizations categorize as sin, and others categorize as, like, outside of the church, categorized as virtuous, um, or just a noble lifestyle. And believe it or whatever you want to believe about that, but at the end of the day, these are private institutions, and they should be able to be an at-will employer that is able to hire whoever they want to hire, and let go and no longer employ people who even may think they're right, and they're mistaken in the employer's eyes. So it just has to go with self-ownership, private property. These rights have to withstand emergencies. We can't just say all rights go out the window for emergencies, and we can't say that all rights go out the window if someone is engaged in an activity that is potentially a net detriment to their well-being. That's the individual's right to control their autonomy and what goes in their body, and it really isn't. Power is not granted to any you can't give away the right to own yourself. So if you can't give away the right to own yourself, then it can't any attempt by another, whether it's a group of people or an individual, to usurp that power is aggression, plain and simple. So I know I just jumped to the principles of it, but that's really the underlying conversation, and I love how the movie portrayed it.
Yeah, it's the alternate title of the movie, as I put it, was "Defending the Undefendable," the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
This movie does feel like it was ghost written by Walter Block,
Right.
which is interesting considering who actually wrote.
Oop. Oh boy. Hold on. All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a glitch in the Matrix. Different movie. Considering you said I got you at a considering interesting because of who wrote the movie, and then
The novel, yeah. So
Yeah.
Ryan was saying it's interesting who wrote the novel, but before we get into that, I wanted to hear your thoughts, Russ.
Yeah.
oh, okay. I love this movie. I saw it back when I was in college, and it had an impact on me, and I loved it. But I was obviously not like a libertarian like I am now. But it's hard to put it in my. I don't know if I put it in my top 5. I don't know. I don't even know if I could pick a top 5, but it's definitely up there. And I think it's definitely in the running for most libertarian movie.
Oh yeah.
I'd have to hear about some other contenders. I'm always happy to hear that, but it's definitely up there. And it's just a shame it's only 90 minutes. But all right, you want to tell us quickly about the novel?
Well, look, can I just say one more thing real quick?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, we already reviewed and talked about how much we love Dallas Buyers Club, because in that film it's about a group of people who should have the right to try to experiment with unknown substances, in terms of like not unknown but side effect unknown, long-term effect unknown, because they're facing death, right? They want to live. That's a little different than that's like the opposite of thank you for smoking. Thank you for smoking is that, you know, the people, they may be engaged in detrimental behavior. Maybe they even know it's wrong. Maybe they believe the reports that, because I don't think there was silence in the realm of smoking is bad for you. It's just that the main character, the lobbyist, I forget his name. What's his name?
Nick Naylor.
Nick Naylor. You know, he's just engaged in doing whatever he can to offer other opinions and studies that back up the fact that it's not detrimental. So I don't think he was like, there was a total lack of any information that said it was wrong. So given that people probably were aware that there was a possibility that smoking was detrimental, or you know, maybe they even noticed that people who had been smoking a long time had a chronic cough, you know, things like just kind of common sense kind of things, you know, you can't. So my point is, you can't love the ideas of heroism, of trying to save one's life, that are baked into Dallas Buyers Club, and then criticize the same kind of freedom of individual action with one's body. You can't criticize that and in thank you for smoking, and yet celebrate it in Dallas Buyers Club. It should be consistent. And I'm not Dave Smith, the most consistent MFer, you know, but I try to be consistent myself.
Yeah, you're pretty wishy-washy. All right. So I think what next we'll do is, I mean, there's
the novel. I cut him off to
sure,
talk.
Go,
the novel. Yeah.
Tell us about the novel. I didn't realize it was a novel.
Yeah, so there was a novel that was released in the 90s, kind of at the height of all of the big tobacco court hearings that were going on at the same time. And what's interesting about the novel is it was written by Christopher Buckley, who is the son of William F. Buckley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And for anyone unfamiliar with that name, he is the founder of Michael Malice's favorite paleontology magazine, the National Review.
and he was very anti-Rothbard.
Yeah. Yeah, when Ayn Rand died and when Murray Rothbard died, he all but did a jig on top of their grave in National Review.
Yeah.
So I have no love for William F. Buckley or his offspring. But he did produce this, which astounds me.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all right. That's an interesting factoid. One more interesting factoid while we're at it. No one in the movie smokes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even put that together.
At no point does anyone ever have a cigarette in their hand and they're actually smoking. Like, talk about it all the time. I'm out. I'm about to start. Like, they never actually smoke in the whole movie.
Yeah, Nick Naylor, he picks up a pack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he looks at it and changes his mind, right?
Well, there's one time
Like,
it's empty. He looks at it and he realizes it's empty. And he
oh,
can't,
right.
Yep.
Wow. Because when I read the excerpt, I think at IMDb before I actually watched it, and I want to open it up, and I apologize if there's any more of that autoplay audio stuff that happened earlier. But like, I think it said, like, even if it kills him, like, I think they implied he had lung cancer, right?
So that's actually that refers to kind of later on in the movie. There's a point in this movie where
the patches.
yeah, where he the main character of this movie, Nick Naylor, is at one point kidnapped by they never fully reveal who it is. That's more of a subplot from the book. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know much about who it is in the book. I will say the movie kind of sort of hints at and even leaves enough room for you to interpret that maybe this guy worked for the senator that Nick Naylor kept going after throughout the course of the movie. Again, that might be just me projecting because, you know, I have the opinions that I have of the government,
right.
But it's never stated, and it's not really like pointed at, but there are implications in the way that he talks about Nick Naylor throughout the movie, and the way that he reacts when Nick actually shows up for the climax of the movie, that he probably had something to do with this.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Okay. I never picked up on that. Maybe I'll have to watch next time, see if I see those breadcrumbs somewhere.
I was actually surprised by the ending because I thought this whole thing was going to be about him being a big smoker who ended up catching lung cancer himself. I had forgotten enough about the film to know that didn't happen. And so when I was watching it and it ended, I was like, what? It just ended? Because I kept expecting them to like drop that poetic twist in there. Like, oh, what he got promoting, killed him.
No, smoking literally saved his life.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Wow. No one actually smokes though. That's crazy.
All right, so let's there's a lot of scenes I felt that relates like what's going on right now in real life. But let's just start with pick a favorite scene you can think about. If you guys need a second, I can start, but otherwise we'll start with Ryan. Do you have one in mind you want to talk about your favorite scene?
I think as far as my favorite scene goes, I really like all of the scenes where he's drinking with the other lobbyists.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, Squad,
very good.
And part of that is like there are a lot of great character actors in this movie, and David Koechner is just one of them. But every time I see him on screen, I'm happy.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Yeah, and I just, while you brought him up really quickly, I just have him was one of my quotes. That's one of my favorite quotes in the movie. Is like he too joined the military. He joined the military so he too could shoot college students. Like,
yep.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, he's the great. I just call him Champ, right? Because I didn't know his real name.
I think I'm Todd Packer. That's who he goes.
Todd Packer.
Yeah, he's Todd Packer.
Champ. Is it Champ? What is it?
Yeah, Champ Kind.
Yeah. Yep.
Champ Kind. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh man. Jeez, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was pretty good, just from because I'll say kind of on the just enjoyable side, absolutely the Mod Squad. On the like maybe like dramatic side or watching characters have internal conflict and putting yourself in that character's shoes and like what would that be like? I think what was good was watching the struggle with him like wanting to spend more time with his son, but also and feeling guilty about how he wasn't in his life, but then also kind of trying to shield him from what he was doing, but then realized that his son was wise, like kind of wise to the whole operation, or at least how to, you know, be strategic with your words to get results. Um, he then it became like this cool kind of like mentorship slash bonding opportunity. So watching it go from like a fear to a source of enjoyment and enrichment for him was what I thought was really good. So I can't think of the specific scene, but I think there was at least one scene like that in the car where he went to the was it the Marlboro Man's house?
Yeah,
Is that Sam Neill? Is that his name? Not
Sam
Sam.
Elliott.
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott.
Sam
Neill is
Sam
Jurassic
Neill's
Park.
taking off his glasses. Um, yeah. So yeah, Sam Elliott, man. What's so funny is like that's a somewhat old movie now, but you go back like to even earlier movies and like he looks that old in like every film and he sounds just like that. He's like permanently ancient and probably until he dies, I guess.
Yeah, and you go back to like the Big Lebowski in the mid '90s, and he's still like that guy. It's like his
Yeah,
character was
right.
great when he was 12.
Yeah, that's what I was
And he
thinking
was
of.
like-
The bar scene with the what was it, sarsaparilla, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, where is it? Yeah.
Even like Tombstone, which is coming up on like its 30th anniversary.
Oh, man.
he still has white hair and
Skin made of leather.
yeah.
Like they left him outside to age for like 12 years,
Yeah.
and it
Right.
really took its toll. But he got to be a great character actor for it.
I mean, he's got to be a smoker too, right? Can you get a voice like that without being a smoker?
I don't know.
I gotta
Probably
Google it now.
not.
Well, I don't know. But we're on a bit of a tangent. But I love what they did with him in Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah.
Where they took like what his character is, and every single thing he ever is just like a hardcore cowboy type character, and they made him into like a tree hugging hippie. This was amazing. So while you're looking that up, I've got a lot of scenes that I wrote down here, and I'm trying to think of. I think my favorite is when they're at just because of the message that comes out of it is when they're eating ice cream. He teaches them how to debate when they're eating ice cream in the theme park. It's an absolutely true, like it's not just fiction. What he's telling him is the truth. That is how debates are. You're never, when you're having a formal debate with someone, you are never trying to convince that other person to take your side. It's them. Everyone else is who you're trying to convince. And
Right.
the way you argue matters. And even if the way you argue can be used for good or for evil, but it's an important lesson that a lot of libertarians haven't learned. And particularly as we're learning our cultural lesson over the last 10 years, 20 years of all the Libertarian Party, it's not enough to be right about something. And that's one of the things I get away from the scene. Even though they're talking about opinions, he talks about the way that you approach it, and as long as you're wrong, then I'm right, that sort of thing. Like you can't just. We have a really great philosophy, and we believe we're right about a lot of things. We have a lot of good proof for it, but that clearly hasn't mattered in 50 years. Because just being right isn't enough. Otherwise, we would already be living in Afghanistan. We would have gotten there
Right.
40 years ago or 50 years ago. So the way that you approach your argument, and you have to sort of play your opponent the way that you play poker, like you don't play the cards, you play your opponent, that sort of thing. That's
Right.
That's the only real way to win in a debate and to actually change minds, and that's what I love about that scene.
It's really the one thing of Ayn Rand's philosophy that we should have dropped that we haven't. Is this idea that if you have the right principles, you'll be able to appeal to people just because the power of your rightness will be able to overcome all other factors. And I mean, you can just go down the line of all the examples of that. I mean, everything that Ron Paul said about how we shouldn't be bombing the Middle East in the mid '90s, and how everyone ignored that, even though he was right. Harry Brown ran for president, and wasn't even like a drop in the bucket at that point. We had the right philosophy on our side. We've had that for so long, but it's that Machiavellianism that we're missing, and that's what this movie really is all about. Is kind of that Machiavellian ethic of arguing, for like how to actually get people to see the argument that you're making, and to misdirect them, and to get them on your side in that way. A lot of the scenes where Nick gets the chance to monologue, especially when he's talking to his sons, there's a lot of good stuff about how to argue, how to debate, and how to think about presenting liberty to people in those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, Prax, I'll give it to you in a second, but you reminded me of this fantastic quote from Faith Seeking Freedom, which I know is backwards.
Nice.
But consider the roads blocked up by robbers, the seas beset with pirates, wars scattered all over the earth with bloody horror of camps. The whole world is wet with mutual blood and murder, which in the case of an individual is admitted to be a crime, is called a virtue when it is committed wholesale. Impunity is claimed for the wicked deeds, not on the plea that they are guiltless, but because the cruelty is perpetuated on a grand scale.
Right.
That was Saint Cyprian in 250 AD.
He was saying
something. He was saying something that we all got from Rothbard, almost 2 millennia ago, and it didn't catch then, and it hasn't caught on now. So, you reminded me of that. Like, oh, there's some people who have this figured out. Like their grandpa knew Jesus. Like, so
wow.
yeah, that was a little bit of a side note, but that's why I love that scene, and that was great about that. Prax, anything you want to add?
Well, I'm going to try to white pill a little bit here and say that, you say it hasn't caught on then, it didn't catch on, it hasn't caught on now. It's like, I think the only reason that we're here and we haven't totally destroyed each other yet is because of
the laws,
what we might call the remnant, right? Yeah, because yeah. So because of Kamala Harris. No. So the only reason yeah, so I would say that the remnant throughout time, whether it's the remnant that were influenced by like the saint himself, who you just read that quote about, the remnant that has pushed, faith, hope, love, truth into the society throughout time. And I think I think those ideas, one reason they go through cycles of catching on and not catching on is because I think it's still the market at work. Like, we talk about how who would provide the fire and safety and things like that in Kapistan, in a truly free society and free market. And it's like, who will provide education? And our comments are always like, well, the desire for learning and education doesn't go away just because you move the state. The desire to be secure and not die and not have your house burned to the ground, those are still going to be in demand, services and needs in any society, civilized society that has, the luxury to worry about such things. So, like, the idea that, those things would fall out of demand in the same way, I think truth, and this is so big in our culture right now.
Mm-hmm.
It plays out in terms like misinformation and disinformation, and like what should I do about who should I trust when it comes to medical advice, and who's really speaking to me from a point of good faith, and who's really motivated by other factors. Like there is a demand for truth, and I think that demand for truth is on the rise. And as long as it's not about just being right. I think I think the past 2 years have helped us maybe in some way graduate from what would have been like top views around like so and so gets owned. Like I think about all the Ben Shapiro videos out there
Mhm.
owning like college, stupid college kids and stuff. And I think that's like, I don't know, like conservative mental pornography.
Yeah.
And I think it just people like to whack off to that and be like, oh, I love being right. And it's like it's not about being right. It's about really being consistent from a source of truth. And so I, that's what we talk about truth and how it matters. I think the same is the only thing I'll say is one caveat. You probably heard this joke, but in marriage, right? The big question is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Right.
Mhm.
That's kind of that's the big one, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna pull on a few.
Oh, I did look it up.
Okay.
Sorry. Mr. Sam Elliott, according to the internet, when I just random Google, smokes on occasion. So he's not, pack a
That's
day
just
or
his
anything.
God-given voice.
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna pull up a few more scenes here for you guys. We can talk
Sweet.
about.
Mhm.
So just starting with the very first one, what I noted about it was the media bias already, like in the that's what it starts with, where they've set him up to be the villain on this talk show, and how it's only gotten worse over time. We feel that acutely now, but it's amazing to even go back 17 years at this point. God help us, and realize like, oh yeah, it was happening then too. It was just in different forms. I don't think talk shows have nearly the. Well, I don't know. I don't pay attention to talk shows, but they may still have some effect on people. And I got to quote Ryan here. When we got together with Ryan recently, he described was it Hoda and who's the other name? Jenna
Kathy
and
Lee.
Hoda. Kathy Lee. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jenna and Hoda, because now
the Hoda and
now
Jenna
Jenna
show,
Bush.
Oh yes, the Hoda and Jenna show as a show for wine moms hosted by two Giga Karens, which is one of my most favorite quotes I've ever heard from someone.
It's so good.
It's absolutely perfect.
Oh.
But I appreciated that, and then saw how like Michael Malice is like the new Nick Naylor. He's the person who you could put in that situation where like you're setting everything up against him to make him the villain, and he will outthink you and outtalk you, and by the end he'll have won everyone over.
And
so yeah,
what I gotta
was one of the
think.
first things that caught on to me. Go ahead, Brax.
Well, I saw Ryan trying to get in. Go ahead.
Oh, I would pay good money for an entire episode of The View where it's just the View ladies having to deal with Michael Malice. Like that's the whole episode. They don't have a topic to discuss. Just Michael Malice is sitting there talking to them.
Oh my gosh.
There's a really good older one with Norm Macdonald on The View. That's kind of that. Where he just like keeps saying what he thinks, and they're literally like trying to put their hands over his mouth so he stops talking.
That's
He
right.
kills
I
Bill
did.
Clinton.
Yeah.
He's like, I thought we were talking about Bill Clinton being a murderer or something like that, like, and they're like literally trying to make him stop. It's
Oh yeah.
R.I.P. Norm
It's
Macdonald.
beautiful.
I miss him.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that, it's it's crazy because like this is really about truth and about being right. And I think what Michael, you got to think, having been on his show multiple times, Michael Malice has Joe Rogan's phone number, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like he's got his phone number. And I think I had seen that Malice episodes were some that got yanked. I think. Yeah. And like, what is going on? I hope to make a documentary or something about it, like the 48 hours of the Rogan incident or something like that. Because this is the hardest they've ever gone, like ever. And they're starting to see some results. And one reason I think they're seeing results, I'm talking about going after Joe Rogan, um, is because he's apologizing. He's apologizing. And Nick Naylor would never apologize, ever,
Right.
Ever, and I gotta be thinking like Malice is like blowing up his phone. Like, dude, stop apologizing. Malice would never apologize. He would double down because Malice is a quick thinker, but everything he says is informed by a bedrock of principles. So as soon as he says something with his steel trap, quick acting mind, he knows he doesn't have to rethink what did he just say. And if anybody pushes back, it's just no, double down. Just torque it harder, torque it harder, torque it harder every time they come after you. And that's what Joe should have done in this situation with Spotify.
I saw a little bit more about that as we're on this tangent a little bit, and it seems like he actually. I mean, it was just really bad communicating with how quickly news can travel on Twitter, and it seems like it was his decision to pull those episodes down on Spotify, and because it had content in it that he wasn't like the racial words or whatever that he wasn't proud of or whatever. So he just had a recent episode where he argued that it's okay to apologize if you regret something, but not for nonsense. So the problem is right now Twitter moves way too fast. Like this has been like 3 days, and this is something that's going to happen over the course of a month, and we'll know much more in like March about what actually happened. We'll be able to see the whole thing as it happened. But
Yeah.
it's just like there's a website that tells you when Rogan episodes come down. So everyone found that out on Twitter, and like 5 seconds later, like Rogan's episodes were taken down by Spotify. Spotify's terrible, and it just like went like so fast. I don't think anyone's communication or social media team could respond fast enough to Twitter. They could like get their message together. Like, all right, what do we say about this? How do we right the wrongs? How do we correct? What do we say? What actually happened? Like that takes too long. Like people were in bed. Like, everyone was asleep. And you like wake up the next day and like it's happened like that. So I just wanted to say that for the record. I had seen that on Twitter, but your point still stands absolutely about not apologizing. So we'll see if Joe continues forward or if he keeps backing down. Hopefully he continues forward.
Well, I hadn't heard that episode
Mhm.
about him saying that he like wanted to take him down because he regretted it, and I never saw like the highlight clip or whatever of like how bad it was supposed to be, and I don't know all the context that was used. I'm acting more on like who I think I know who Joe is and like what type of person he is and what animates him, and I've seen him really try to be like go out of his way to be like kind and sensitive to people and like I'm assuming, and you tell me if you have information otherwise because I trust you, that he wasn't speaking maliciously with ill intent anytime naughty words were used. So even if he regretted it and wanted to take it down, my question is like, why? Like, what did you regret?
Yeah,
Does he talk about that?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, just having heard a few of those episodes, and I have by no means listened to every single episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, but having listened to episodes where he did say gamer words, as people like to call them,
That's great.
he was never calling anyone that. He was always using it kind of. I don't even know the right word for it, but he was always talking about the word itself and saying that word in the context of talking about the word and how radioactive it is. It was on the same level of the Tom Segura bit where he says you can't say the word retarded anymore. It was that level, like that's the only way I ever heard him use it, was to talk about how it's a thing that you shouldn't call people, but it's to the point where if you even just make that sound with your mouth, people just like melt down and lose their minds.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the point that he was always going after with his use of that word. But again, I've not seen every episode where that happened. I don't know the full context or anything like that. I tend to give Joe Rogan the benefit of the doubt when it comes to stuff like that. You know, I can't imagine him saying it in a malicious way, just based on everything that we know about him. So it really does just feel like he's done some things recently to make some very powerful people very upset, and this is just the way they decided to go after him.
Gotcha.
So one more comment, and then maybe to move on. So, like, I'm going to say this the way it came to me in my head, even if it's not right. So most people, contrary to what most people believe, I don't make my living with my mouth. So just think about that for a second, right? So, like, someone who's in entertainment, like a Joe Rogan or a comedian, like Dave Chappelle, like, they're millionaires, if not more. There you go. Great connection. Like, they're millionaires, if not more. They have yachts because of the way they contorted their tongue and lips and vocal cords in a way that added value in people's lives. Like, that's a crazy thought when you really think about it. Like, just because vibrations and waves came out of this orifice, which also takes in food, just because vibrations came and hit your eardrums and caused your brains to release endorphins that made you, happy and laugh, they're millionaires, right? And so when that's your trade, when that's how you've become rich, you're probably pretty good at figuring out, like, what really makes people tick and laugh and think. And so it's got to be fascinating as a comedian to know that there's these certain words out there that can bring the house down, like, in a bad way. Like, you're used to doing these great bits, right, where you're like, this one kills, right? I'm going to go out there and this one kills. Well, there's usually like a big setup. Maybe it's like a 3-minute bit with a big payoff at the end, right? However, there's this one short word that if you utter it, people melt down. And so it's the same kind of hysterical response that comedians are looking for, just in the negative. So that's got to be pretty fascinating to someone who makes their living that way, and just be like, this is incredible that I have this power just with the way I can make sound emit from my body.
And to address what Soggy Beaver is saying here in chat, it's because discretion is the better part of valor. And the reason why we're not saying the word, or at least the reason why I'm not saying it, is, there doesn't need to be footage of me saying that word out there on the internet. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no kidding.
I wish that everyone had the same thought about it. I wish that everyone could think about it that way and view it that way. The reality is they can't. There are, that, again, that's a landmine. And personally, I have decided I'm not going to step on that landmine. So
no, what's the
point? That's my choice.
There's no value that comes out of it. Like, we could do it and, like, all right, we did it. Now what? The best thing that can happen is nothing. And the worst thing that can happen is someone clips it or we lose our stream or something like that, right? It's just like, there's no benefit to doing it other than getting to say, like, look, I did it. And then you've got that Jurassic Park, like, look, you said it. Look, no one cares. Like,
yeah.
But I wanted to finish off like what you had said, Prax, with the last line in the movie. Michael Jordan plays basketball. Charles Manson kills people. I talk.
There you go. Thank you for connecting that. I should have.
Yeah.
Good job.
So along with that, the media bias, what we were talking about originally, that scene, it's also connected to when he meets the senator later, which is that not only does it seem like the media was against him, but it was also set up by the government. Basically, the senator has stacked this deck, or he hired Ron Goody to stack the deck there, and even says he bashes the cancer institute or whatever, and it's like describes what a pitiful cancerous child should look like and should be. Like no part of it is sympathy. It's all about winning political points, and that's why he did it. And I was like, oh yes, you are a perfect politician. Like this is exactly what a politician is, nakedly, but in the form of fiction.
Mm-hmm. And I love how explicitly, like from the first minute you see Senator Finister, I believe is his name, it's immediately made clear that it's not that he cares about saving people's lives, it's that he cares about winning this battle so that he looks good for his constituents. It's the professional wrestling match that people have talked about. He has set up Nick Naylor as the heel that he's going to take down as the babyface. And the problem is Nick Naylor is not going to play that game with him.
Right.
And we get to see them break kayfabe.
Yep.
In that scene, we get to see the real man behind the wrestling persona.
Mm-hmm.
Also related, very very related to today, is the scene where Brad the doctor decides to take Nick outside and just casually, it's secondhand smoking's a real killer, huh? And it's like, oh, that hasn't changed either. Like the pompousness of doctors and experts, which we're feeling right now really badly.
Are they? They should. Are they feeling badly?
No,
the experts.
What did I say that they're feeling bad? No, that we are feeling like acutely.
Oh, we're feeling that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We're really it's hitting us now, and it was like made fun of a little bit in that movie of like the pompousness of experts, and I just love the way that he plays it off too. He's just I don't want to use the word because we try to be slightly family friendly on this show, but just like the arrogance that guy Brad has is still very much evident today.
Yeah.
And again, for the purposes of remaining family friendly, I won't repeat the line, but Nick Naylor's response to him is succinct and hilarious.
The PG version is Brad, I'm his dad. You're just the guy having sex with his mom.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then he's like offended by it. Like, well, that was uncalled for. Like, he's an absolute Ken, just like butting into his life, telling him like what he's just supposed to accept. Just like that, like the guy, who was that statesman that was just roasted, that Dave Smith and Robbie the Fire just covered on Part of the Problem.
Oh, the State Department guy?
The State Department guy who was like, what evidence do you have this happen? I just told you. It happened. That's your evidence. Like, how dare you even question it? Like, I said it happened, therefore it happened. And that was like the same thing that happens in the movie. Like, it is a real killer. You know that, right? I don't need to present you with any evidence. You see my long white coat on. Accept it.
Yeah, right.
And we had a lot of that in particular in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And there's one thing that's super interesting, kind of before Penn Jillette lost his mind and decided that he was going to just fully support the regime. 2
when
years
did this happen?
Oh, I mean, he supported Hillary Clinton. He supported Biden. He supported Gavin Newsom in the recall election. Penn Jillette's kind of decided who his friends are at this point, and I don't know why. I honestly don't get it. But
I can give you the answer right there. It's Trump derangement syndrome.
Yes.
Oh.
It's got to be. The only reason you would go that hard to that side is you must think that Trump's the next Hitler.
And
Sorry, man, that was crazy. So Penn Jillette.
didn't he do like Celebrity Apprentice or something like that? I feel like he was on a
Mhm.
show
He did.
with Donald Trump, and so maybe it's purely just like personal animosity towards Donald Trump that's kind of prompted this. But anyway, when he and Teller had their show on Showtime, Penn and Teller BS.
Yeah.
2 years before this movie came out, one of their episodes was partially about secondhand smoke, and they interviewed Larry Elder on the show, and it was about the whole, smoking sections in restaurants, making buildings smoke free, all that. It's an interesting companion to this movie to watch that episode of the show, which is on Hulu, and then watch this movie, or watch the movie and then watch that episode, just to kind of see where the discourse was at. Because they really dive into the whole, this is the media narrative, this is what everyone's telling you, and then here's what you're not allowed to hear about it.
Yeah. That's also interesting that they like now the opposite is true. So you've got like with smoking sections, well, that's crazy. The smoke's just gonna go everywhere, and secondhand smoke's gonna kill people. And now it's like, well, you should wear a mask when you're walking around, but it's okay to take a mask off while you're eating because the virus will stay at your table. So that makes perfect sense. It's not gonna the other thing you breathe will go everywhere, but this thing you breathe will stay right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you should just let the businesses decide, right? Because there may the incentives will work themselves out. So, like, I can see a restaurant being like, "Man, we don't want people smoking in here because they sit around, they just drink coffee after coffee, and they don't let our tables go, and they take up our wait staff and don't increase tips." Okay, yeah, so like just don't allow it or shrink the size or something like that. But like a bar, like people want to smoke and drink. Like the bars don't care. Most bars don't care. Or your value add as a bar, it could be, look, no smoking, come here and drink, and be like, call it the no smoke bar or something like that, and like differentiate yourself in the market. Like it'll work itself out, I promise. Like people will self sort and go where they want to go and part with their scarce resources where they want to part with them. And like that's just like so goofy that you think like there needs to be some entity that watches out for us. It's like, come on, man. I'm talking about adults.
Which is the central theme of the movie.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that they try and get him for at the end, and it's the most beautiful part. Probably the most beautiful part of the movie is when he says like, when he's 18, are you going to let him smoke or whatever? And he says like, if he really wants to, I'll buy him his first pack. Like there it is. He should make his own choice. And he even says like, it's about parents. Like your parents are supposed to educate your children. The amount of times that like kids, something goes wrong with kids or they do something terrible, and like no one blames the parents anymore. When it's like, yes, that should be the first reflection. Like if your 12-year-old goes out and murders someone, like I screwed up somewhere as a parent, should be the first thing. And instead it's the system that screwed us over, or it was the schools or the police or someone set him on this path when even though there are a lot of hardships in a lot of those ways, and school is awful, but like it starts with your parents. And did your parents teach you not to kill people at 12 or before that? Because it probably should have, and clearly it didn't come up if that's what happened.
And one thing I'll say, just from like a cinema perspective about that particular scene, where Nick Naylor says if he really wants to, I'll buy him his first pack. The way that Aaron Eckhart performed that particular line, where he just kind of leans forward and you can see just the absolute certainty on his face. There's not a minute of hesitation. The movie kind of treats it like it's a big dramatic moment. Like, anyone else would be kind of, playing the mental tennis game back and forth in their head. But this guy is so assured in what he believes in that he just leans forward and says with absolute conviction that this is the hill he's going to die on. And
he has this, because he's a fantastic actor, he has this perfect like head turn right beforehand. Like they ask him this question and he just kind of does this, like, I think this question is as easy as I think it is. Like he just takes that second to be like, yeah, this is an easy answer, and then he does the lean forward, and like delivers the line, and it's like, yes, it's perfect. Prax, is there anything you want to add?
Is it time for like just random trivia stuff that or not trivia, but interesting facts?
Yeah, sure. Let's go on. Let's just talk about whatever you want to talk about at this point.
So I didn't know until the end about a certain producer.
Oh yes.
Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Old HW.
HW?
Oh wait, I thought you were talking about. I thought it was. Wait. Who are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the executive producer of Thank You for Smoking.
Who is that?
Elon Musk.
Oh really? Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, what? So I had to look into it, and like,
It was another Elon Musk.
No, it was him.
no, yeah, he's a different Elon Musk. It's like it's an Elon Musk joint, and like he really wasn't and really hasn't since that film been involved in a lot of other films. I mean, he showed up to play like himself and stuff, but like on a like producer standpoint, he did Puzzled, which I had never heard of, in 2001, and he did Thank You for Smoking in 2005. There's only like 4 credits after that, and they're all like documentaries. So I would love to know the story there. Like, how did he get involved and believed in it so much that he wanted to be a producer? Like, that's so interesting.
So I have a couple of pieces that might kind of make things a little bit more clear on that front.
Please.
Jason Reitman, the director of this movie, this was his first feature film, and he had written a draft of the script for the production company Icon Productions, and they couldn't secure any funding from any of the major studios because they basically wanted this whole movie to be about how Nick Naylor comes to terms with his sins. At the end of the movie, he's repentant for what he's done, and no one at the studio or at the production company that made the movie and Reitman didn't want to change it. He wanted it to be kind of true to the original novel.
Yeah.
And so no one would finance the movie until he had a meeting with David O. Sachs, who is the other co-founder of PayPal. So I think that's where Elon Musk enters, is that David Sachs agreed to finance the movie and then brought Elon on as well.
Wow.
And as for why Elon probably hasn't produced a lot of movies, unless you're like in the film production business, producing a movie is not a great return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
It's you put a lot of money into something. Is even like an independent film like this, you put a lot of money in, and what comes back to you is not it's not like a great return on investment. It's kind of like being a wealthy patron of the arts in the Renaissance, where you don't get that money back, but you get a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah,
that's what film production is from the investment standpoint. So it was probably just like strategic grounds where it's not worth the money putting in to continuously produce movies unless you want that to like be your primary source of income, unless you want to be someone like I have to say his name now, Harvey Weinstein or someone like that who has a production company.
That's I thought who you were going to say when you said the production company. I thought you were going to bring up something about him, but I got that wrong. All of that is amazing and blows my mind. First of all, Elon Musk tweeted recently, "Thank you for smoking." He just put that out there, and I just thought like, oh wow, he must love that movie. That's great. That's awesome. I had no idea he was connected into that way.
Wow,
so that's awesome. But you mentioned two other people, or two other things. One, you mentioned Icon Productions, which I do believe is Mel Gibson's company.
It is.
I think you're right.
And I just watched Braveheart again, and that comes up in that one.
Wow, I gotta watch that now.
And then you mentioned Jason Reitman, who is the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters.
I didn't put that together.
Yep.
So you've got like another great libertarian movie coming, like in the same line of directors, the same family. So it's kind of not surprising that he would be the one who sort of helms that too, which is great.
Oh, and then he did Juno.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I like Juno. I think it's a pretty good film.
Yeah, I loved it.
Let's see. As we're just going through interesting facts, this is the first time I noticed that there are placards all over the place that actually say "Thank you for smoking" on them.
Oh,
like sitting on tables and things like that. Like where normally it would say like no smoking, it says "Thank you for smoking" on the placards in a lot of different places.
I didn't see that. Good one.
And I'm gonna pull out something cinematically and thematically in the movie that I love. That I really picked up on this time, but like Heather Holloway is Nick Naylor's match. He loses to her. The way that they set that up is really brilliant, because one of the first things he says in the movie is, that guy who can get any girl, I'm him on crack. That's one of his lines. And not too much later, we find out he's divorced.
Wow.
So he has this blind spot where he thinks he's this gift from God, or at least his mouth is, and he can do whatever he wants with it. Completely not like ignoring the fact that he's divorced. And then the next thing he does, the person he loses to is a woman he thinks that he can smooth talk, and he's got control of, and it's actually her that attempts to ruin him, or she controls the whole situation. And it's only realizing that, interestingly, not coming to it, here we go, not apologizing, but just owning up to it, because that's what Heather Holloway does. She sleeps with other people to get their information, but they're so embarrassed or will be so ruined by revealing that or letting that out that they don't, and that's what she counts on. But she does not count on the fact that Nick Naylor could actually spin that into his own benefit and destroy her instead. And by not apologizing, not groveling, and not ending up giving up completely because of Joey, his son, it's like you always say, if you want an easy job, go work for the Red Cross.
Yeah. I like that.
Which I love that line too, because there's actually like a nugget of truth to that. Like no one is ever going to like it's going to be hard work, absolutely, but no one is ever going to bash you because you said you work for the Red Cross. Like you will never ever get flack for that. So I think that line is hilarious and also has a kernel of truth in it, like every good line. But yeah, that was one of the things I really picked up on this time in the movie that I love.
And that was Katie Holmes.
Yes.
Who played that. Yeah.
Yep.
Also in the Batman Begins in 2005.
Yep. Absolutely.
And she was the one who had crazy with Tom Cruise for a while there.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And I do have to wonder, something tells me that the Heather Holloway character isn't as exaggerated as the movie would have us believe. And I'm getting this from who was it that did the hit piece on Alex Jones where he kind of got out in front of it and stole its thunder a couple years back?
I don't remember.
Can't remember. Was it Megyn Kelly or it was someone like that?
Mm-hmm.
But she came out and did this interview with Alex Jones and told him it wouldn't be a hit piece, and he kind of saw through it and recorded everything.
Oh,
and then
right. As
she was doing the as she was releasing the interview, he started putting out all of the recordings that he made, and she was kind of doing the Heather Holloway thing, not
sleeping with Alex Jones,
not to that extent, but
she
was like kind of sort of. There were some like weird lines like balding men are sexy or something like that she was saying to Alex Jones.
Wow.
Just trying
to like, oh, really?
Trying to wield those feminine wiles that we pretend don't exist, that do work on men.
Yeah, right. Talk about inequity. I don't have wiles.
Talking about being able to use your mouth.
He went there.
All right,
He did it.
and here's the thing: as it came out of my mouth, like, that was not actually the way I intended it, but then it was already out there, and I couldn't pull it back in. I meant it actually. I truly meant it more as when you were saying like people who like make their money off talking, or like that's,
yeah,
like dudes pretend like pickup lines work, but like that, like I love every bone in your body, especially mine, has never gotten a girl ever. So, but women can absolutely, by just the way they say things, just the tone they put into it, can absolutely just melt a man into whatever they want.
But pickup lines do work, Rez. They work as intended, right? So
as repulsion,
no, it's a very quick and efficient filtering process, right? So if you throw a pickup line at a girl and she rejects you, you saved yourself a ton of time, right? But if you throw a pickup line at a girl and she doesn't walk away, you're probably going to end up sleeping with her. Right?
So if probably picked a crazy one. So
if your intent is to rapidly bed as many partners as possible, it's a very efficient filtering mechanism.
Okay, that's an interesting insight.
I think it also helps to be attractive as a guy doing the pickup line, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt.
Probably.
Have you guys ever seen the chart a guy made that like it has like there's like a crazy scale,
crazy hot,
crazy hot scale,
yeah,
for women. But he actually, most people have seen that, but there's more to that video where he has one for dudes. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, really? No.
He's like, this one is like, of course there's one for dudes, but it's much simpler, and it's just like attractiveness and money, and like at a certain point, no matter how much money you have, your attractiveness doesn't matter. Like,
right.
And that's the whole scale. It's just this linear scale that goes up, and that's it.
That's awesome.
Now, one other thing that I wanted to bring up about this movie, just because I talked about it a little bit, but there are a lot of fantastic, just like bit part character actor performances in this movie that I really want to call out. Robert Duvall as like the tobacco baron.
Yes, I've got quotes. Every line. I was. I'm gonna, and you already know the line, but I'm gonna say it. I was in Korea shooting Chinese.
Yeah.
I laugh every time I hear that line. Sorry to cut you off.
That was great. Yeah, Robert Duvall. He was great.
He's fantastic. J.K. Simmons is always a favorite in whatever he's in, and he really gets to be J.K. Simmons in this movie.
Yeah.
So.
Cheers? I can't do it. Yeah.
I just love the sound of his voice. Anytime he shows up, I'm just like, oh, strap in. Here we go. It was one of the things that actually disappointed me about the most recent Spider-Man movie was it didn't feel like J.K. Simmons was being authentic J.K. Simmons like he was in the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy when he was just kind of being... himself, but also, true to what J. Jonah Jameson was. They were like, okay, we have J.K. Simmons because everyone recognizes him as J. Jonah Jameson, and now he's going to do a mediocre Alex Jones impression.
I didn't see the new Spider-Man, but that's disappointing. I mean, it's not unexpected, but it's disappointing to hear they kind of destroyed him.
The movie itself is actually pretty good, but I was not entirely happy with the way that they used J.K. Simmons, because when you have a J.K. Simmons, you need to take full advantage of what you've been given there.
Right.
And it again, this is now just me gushing about how much I love J.K. Simmons, but you see him in like everything. In Portal 2, he's fantastic as Cave Johnson. And so many fantastic quotes from Cave Johnson in Portal 2. But you can also see him in something like Oz, where he's J.K. Simmons, but he's like truly despicable. And a guy that you were like actively rooting against, but sometimes he's also somewhat sympathetic. It's interesting the range that he has while still being very recognizably one thing.
Yeah.
And he has a face that's just like, depending on how you light it, is like hilarious, or like the most evil thing. Like just the way you light him is like, oof,
Yeah.
oof, can scare you. Or when he gets those beefy shoulders up or whatever like that, it's just.
Yeah.
And Whiplash is another one. I love Whiplash. That's a really good movie.
Mhm.
Have you guys seen Whiplash?
I have not.
Oh, have mercy.
I haven't seen it either.
All right, well, go do that. I don't know if we'll cover it on here, but absolutely go see that movie. It is incredible.
Okay.
Any other character actors you want to bring up?
So we mentioned David Koechner, who's always a gem. Who else? Oh, who else was really good in this movie? I mean, William H. Macy as the senator was fantastic as well.
He's always great.
William H. Macy is another one who's just able to project that right air of like smarminess at times. He can do other things really well too, but the way he plays the senator in this movie is just like you can
Entitled.
tell. Yeah. You can tell this is a man who is used to getting little to no pushback for anything that he does, anything that he says. And when it comes up against opposition, the way he reacts to it is
You can't believe it. Yeah,
Right.
It's like what he shouldn't have to prove anything.
And in the end, he's still doing the same crap. Like that's how it ends. Like he's trying to tastefully update movies, is how he calls it, by removing cigarettes from them. Like going full Spielberg Lucas on movies, just for the sake of political points.
And the last one to call out, this isn't so much a character actor performance as it is a cameo, but it was very nice to see Dennis Miller in this movie, just being Dennis Miller.
Eloquent in its brevity. That's a great line. Yeah. I'm going to go back to Robert Duvall first, because that's another scene you just reminded me of like Nick Naylor, well, Aaron Eckhart, he's playing it like he knows this is the boss, so he has to act a certain way. But it's like he's seeing the 10th wonder of the world. Like he can't believe what he's looking at, who he's interacting with, and how this is going, while also realizing he has to be like, this is also my boss, and I have to like agree with everything. But like every time he says something that's just like horribly racist or something like that, he's just like, yeah, wow. Like I love how he handles all of those scenes in that way.
Yeah.
It's like half this is my boss, half this is the greatest show on earth. Like I can't believe I have a front row to this level of real racism. I guess I won't have to shoot so many of them next time. Just like, oh wow, like you actually said that. I'm here for that.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but it wasn't until Parks and Rec where I really knew who Rob Lowe was.
Another good one.
And like now I'll go back and watch stuff, this being an example, and be like, oh, Rob Lowe. You know, and just being like, he's got that Sam Elliott gene where he also doesn't age.
Yep.
You know,
Keanu
it seems like. Yeah, you're right, Keanu Reeves. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what's the oldest movie you can name? And I'm IMDb cheating, but what's the oldest movie you can name with Rob Lowe in it?
The Outsiders.
Wow, that was fast.
St. Elmo's Fire.
That might
Okay, Outsiders was 83.
Okay, so I think you beat me.
Yeah. St. Elmo's Fire. I got to scroll up here pretty far. I'm not finding it, but do you remember the character's name in The Outsiders?
Oof, no, he's not Ponyboy. That's all I know. I think he's one of the greasers.
He's Soda Pop Curtis.
Soda Pop Curtis. Yeah. That movie has an unbelievable cast. Click on that movie and read the first like 10 actors from that movie.
Yeah, you ready for this? First of all, Francis Ford Coppola.
Yep.
Yeah. Thomas Howell, Matt Dillon, Ralph Macchio, Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Tom Cruise, Diane Lane. Yeah.
See, Thomas Howell is the only one like no one knows, but like every one of those other people is like a huge or has been a huge star or is a huge star still.
And wasn't this like all their breakout roles basically?
Yeah, like they're all kids in this movie.
Yeah.
So, and there's even a really great old SNL where Rob Lowe is doing the monologue and he's reading like a fake diary about like his time in movies, and like the one he does about The Outsiders is like, I've never been among such a bunch of like scrub terrible actors who are never gonna have a future. Except C. Thomas Howell, he's going places. Like that's the.
That's hilarious. I read that one because he was Pony Boy, but I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, we had to read that book in high school, and then I remember watching the movie, and I don't even think I paid attention to the movie. I was just like, he's in it, he's in it, he's in it. Like it's just like
that's the Karate Kid. That's all I could think of.
Right, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we derailed that a little bit, but you were just talking about Rob Lowe, right?
Yeah, because that was the only one from the cast who I thought bared mentioning, and I had that. I was like, I wonder, like, because I had that like Parks and Rec syndrome going on. So I'm like, what else has he been in? Because it's just like he seems to pop up everywhere, and he was all the way back in Outsiders. He also did 2 ABC after-school specials, which I would love to see.
Ooh, we gotta find those.
Yeah.
You reminded me that he has another one of my favorite quotes is when they're talking about making the movie. And he's just, he questions him about the oxygen environment. He's like, it's just one line. They invented the, whatever device. Like that's, it's like, oh, that's like current filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need any actual explanation or whatever. If we're literally just trying to sell products. So whatever we need to say to make it make sense or whatever, sure, just say it so we can sell products. Okay. That's also what's happening.
I have a strong suspicion that Mike Judge leaned on that lawyer character strongly for Ron LaFlamme in Silicon Valley. Have you guys seen Silicon Valley?
Seen the first season or season and a half. Which guy's Ron?
Ron LaFlamme is like the Silicon Valley lawyer who helps all the startups navigate their terms and conditions with the VC, the venture capitalist. Man,
I don't remember him.
If you guys haven't seen every episode of that show, please.
I need to watch that show.
I
love Mike Judge.
Oh my gosh, incredible! Especially if you've been in tech. Holy cow! But just to bring it full circle here, Rob Lowe was in a TV series called A New Kind of Family back in the late 70s, early 80s, and one of the episodes was called "No Smoking, Please." So it's really full circle. He's got a lot of range. You can tell, He's got a lot of range in his ability to walk the, I guess the inhaled nicotine spectrum.
And I really love the moment in the movie where he calls Nick to like tell him what it's going to cost for the movie, and he goes, "Oh, and by the way, you're going to be co-financing it with the Sultan of Brunei."
Yeah.
And Nick Naylor's like, "Didn't he kill all those people?" And Rob Lowe's reaction is just, "Oh yeah, he's a lovely guy." Very nice.
Yeah. the Sultan of Tudan or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just I watch shows like this and movies like this and like Lord of War, like we mentioned and stuff, where it's like, there probably is a ton of money to be made if you're just an amoral psychopath.
Oh yeah.
If you just have no qualms about what you're doing, there's probably like tons of money.
Yeah, and I missed a little bit what you said, but like about that scene, I saw recently like a quote from Mel Gibson, or I think it was supposed to be about Mel Gibson about why, and someone saying why did he get like cast out of Hollywood, and one of his quotes was saying that like Hollywood is run in the blood of children, and like. like the sacrifice of children in ways and things like that. Like I don't, but it seems like this sort of thing, or like you call it like a pedophile ring or something like that.
Yeah,
which would not be unlike the government or whatever. So it's interesting when you put it that way. You made me think of the Rob Lowe character in a way that I never had before. That like almost every professional that Nick Naylor deals with is actually way worse than he is.
Yes.
Like he's meant to be like,
wow.
You're supposed to think of him as like, well, he's this like anti-hero because he has these bad stances about things. But the senator is a horrific person. And
Wow, okay.
Rob Lowe is almost like a Harvey Weinstein type, honestly, where he's like, well, I'll do whatever, none of that. He even says like he has that line like it's not my place to judge the morals of whatever. He's just gonna do it.
Right.
And Heather Holloway is another. She's just an awful person.
Gosh, yeah,
it's all awful people that he deals with. Even Joan London is there to like set things up. Like the only probably okay people, and Brad is terrible. His ex-wife and his son are like the only good people. And I guess you could say that Sam Elliott's character isn't his name wrong? I can't remember what his name is in the movie, but even the Sam Elliott character, that whole sequence, it ultimately ends in him going, "Well, can't I have my principles for half?" Right? Can I?
Yeah.
Right. So you're right. Yeah. And then you get that montage of like everyone getting buried at the end, and they all have to run away from him, because Heather Holloway has exposed through him how awful all these other people are, basically, in a lot of ways.
Yep. Right.
Oh, I love the layers of this movie.
One other interesting thing and this is a kind of background conflict that only really plays out towards the end of the movie. But when we talk about the character of the captain, Robert Duvall's character, one of the main thrusts of conflict in this movie is the fact that the captain sees something in Nick, because Nick is very much the public face. He's the one who, like, his words sell everyone on this, but he basically ignores BR, J.K. Simmons' character, which, like, when he's talking about flying on Tobacco One, and BR goes, "Haven't had the pleasure," and just like leaves it at that.
Yeah.
The resentment that builds between them over Nick kind of being the favored son of the tobacco industry, even though BR has been in it for a very long time,
and is a terrible person.
Yeah, and also he's a terrible person.
Yeah. What was I just thinking about? I lost it.
That was pretty good. I mean, we've been going at it for like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I had one more quote, which I love, which is a Senator Finisher quote. I remember the other thing too, but the quote is, "The man shills BS for a living. You work for an effing senator." Like that, like he's trying to make it like a point of like, he's wrong and I'm right, obviously, but it's just the most like you could yell that into a mirror type thing. So that was the last line I had written down. Do you guys have any other lines in particular you remember that you love? I should have prepped you beforehand. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, like, the ones you mentioned are like right up there with me too.
One that made me laugh out loud was when he does his first interview with Heather, and he says everyone has a mortgage to pay, and then it pauses and he goes, "The yuppie Nuremberg defense," and then it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So good. like so good. Wow. Like so relevant. So relevant.
Yes. And you reminded me, as we were talking about your favorite teams in the Mod Squad, when they're having their argument, the one time is like, "I'm sure what you do warrants vigilante justice." And Maria Bella's character is sincerely like, "Thank you." Like,
yes, right.
Like they're actually offended that you would think that we're not also worthy of being attacked by a mob of unruly vigilantes.
Yes.
And I love when they're first comparing numbers, and David Koechner has to own up to the fact that firearms have the lowest count.
Yeah, right.
And you reminded me when he meets Joey, and he's just like, "Hey, yeah, guns are pretty cool, right?" He's like, "Oh, sorry, guns should be treated with respect." Like,
and him being stopped at the metal detector, going into the hearing, and then going, "This could take a while."
Right?
Yes.
Oh, so good. So the last thing I think I was remembering about was we talked about the vigilantes a little bit, but I should have gotten some quotes from him, but how that's that's where we're at with social media now. What people have become in like a metaphorical sense, where like they're just out for blood, and that's what happens in the van. Like it's really the first time in his life he's has to face the fact that his mouth can't save him, and he tries a few times to like, can we get a dialogue going? Can we talk? And they're like, no, we're not here to talk. We're here to hurt you. That's it. And that's what like social media has become. And
great point.
And like that's what our culture has become. We're not here to talk. We're here to hurt you. And that's why, again, like we were saying, like you can't just be right. You can't just be able to talk. You have to be able to communicate emotionally with people, or understand where they're coming from, or understand that some people are hopeless at this point, or the medium that you're talking to them through. You're not going to convince anyone on Twitter. Twitter is like an online debate platform in the way that Nick Naylor talks about it. Like when you're retweeting someone or responding to someone, you're not trying to convince that person of anything. It's for all the commenters below. It's for everyone else that you're doing that. And that's why it's like basically pointless to read Twitter comments, and almost self-destructive to read Twitter comments. Say what you're going to say to the person you're going to say it to for what you're going to say it about. Move on. Because nothing good comes from that. So I got a little bit on tangent there, but like
that's a problem, because I'm not saying the highest quality dialogue is capable of taking place over Twitter. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons why Joe Rogan's so popular, is because you actually get a real conversation going, you actually get a dialogue going. But it's a real problem when the ability to converse and dialogue and try to convince one another breaks down, or is never considered and invited. I mean, really, the only alternative is violence, and like that's why, like in diplomacy, right? What do you want above all? You want people at the table, because if they're at the table disagreeing with one another, then they're not in the war room drawing up battle plans and sending troops off to fight each other and kill civilians. And so it's a larger theme in our culture right now, where it's, it seems like we're there's more and more self-sorting going on, whether it's voting with your feet and moving to a more open state, or if it's moving to a more open platform like a Rumble or an Odyssey, something like that. But there's this self-sorting going on, but so much of it is driven by like, I can't call it violence, but to say, get out of here, or you can't be here anymore because we don't like your speech, we don't like your truth claims, all that stuff. That is it's not a step closer to peace. That's all I know. It doesn't get us closer to understanding and dialogue. It just gets us further apart. And if that can happen peacefully, if we can separate peacefully, that's great. That's like the best of all possible worlds. I mean, no, that's not the best of all possible worlds. It would be if people came around to believing in the fundamental rights that we believe in, because we think that promotes the greatest amount of peace. But absent that happening, the best outcome is just people going their separate ways peacefully. And if we've exhausted dialogue, that's one thing. But if dialogue is being decapitated, that's another.
That's a great point. That's awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
And that leads us to the idea of secession being so important. That's the
right.
walk away that we need, because we haven't really had that. We haven't had a lot of that in history. There are certainly times people forget that countries have peacefully separated in the past. There used to be a Czechoslovakia. Now there's a Czech Republic and there's a Slovakia. And it didn't end because a bunch of people killed each other. They just, I don't actually know the story. I just know that they were like, we're going to do our thing, you're going to do your thing. And that's it. And that's what we have now. And then, of course, the biggest example, which in our last episode last week, we were talking about post-libertarians and things like that, and just like their seemingly short, like window of there's a short time frame of like how long it takes for things to happen, and how quickly they can forget, and how long they think it's how long they're willing to wait. You think about the USSR, the Soviet Union. One day there was a Soviet Union, and the next there wasn't. They did terrible things, but did not require some bloody civil war, some conflict to get it to separate. And I'm seeing that in a lot of post-libertarians, and I'm seeing it in libertarians too, that like are part of the Mises Caucus or think they are, who think that like this has to be a fight. The only way out, the only way to beat these people who are violent is with violence. We have to respond. We have to be ready to fight. We have to take up arms and be ready for that. And you don't have to. And generally that doesn't work. Like it can work sometimes. It's almost always Pyrrhic in a way. But it doesn't have to be that way. And we have plenty of examples of that. I think a lot of people forget that we can go our separate ways peacefully. And that's hopefully what will happen for the United States. I hope we become 2 countries, 4 countries, 10 countries, 50 countries or more. Because that will set a precedent for the world that the world has never seen before, for other countries too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that now we've got people like Ron Perlman, fantastic actor, absolutely terrible garbage political opinions, but he is now openly musing about the idea of secession.
Man, that'd be great.
Yeah, he put it out, and like all the Mises Caucus, like all the Mises and libertarians, like people liked that tweet. Like, yes,
Yep.
This is what we've been saying for 10 years when you were calling us a racist for wanting to do this. Like,
Right.
If you guys want to, you got any more add? You guys want to add to that at all?
No, I
That's
mean, as
great.
far I think we've pretty well covered this.
I got one more thing I wrote down here that I just wanted to mention that I think it's a little bit related to what we were talking about before, but he talks about himself. Nick Naylor talks about himself being morally flexible when he has to go talk to the Marlboro Man. That's what he tells Joey, like that his job requires a certain moral flexibility. And I think the more I thought about it, I don't know that it actually does. I think he ends up being the most principled person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's the hero. Everyone else is the one who's morally flexible, who's willing to bend at whatever to get what they need. He just feels sort of trapped. But he's the only one having a crisis of conscience about it before he's able to talk to the guy. Again, discourse 1-to-1, not through other medium, and understand him as a person and how to approach it. And, again, I understood he wasn't crazy. Again, something you don't get through Twitter discourse. When you talk 1-to-1, you realize most, like 99.999% of people are not actually crazy. They're just motivated by something you don't understand, and that's all you need is to understand what motivates them. But then he actually finds a way back to this sort of freedom principle in a way that he ends up going to at the end to say that to the Marlboro Man. Like, all right, this is what you do. You can do these things, but you can either take the money or you can sue us. And which one do you really want? You want to just settle right now and be done with it and have the money you need, or do you want to try and drag this out into a media firestorm and probably die poor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's part of this is just because we see this movie from his perspective, but Nick Naylor is the only character in the movie who ponders the moral implications of any of the things that he's doing.
Right.
Throughout the entire run. I guess Joey does to a certain extent, because we also see Joey getting an understanding of what his dad does and why his dad ultimately is a hero to him. But those are the only two childhood. Sorry, continue. Those are the only two characters who ever actually ponder any kind of moral implications of what they're doing, or think about, am I doing the right thing? Everyone else is just either doing what they do to survive, or doing what they do to get something over on someone else.
Absolutely. And finally, I'll say, you just reminded me, I don't know why Joey, that actor, didn't pan out. Maybe it's because he was better as a child, but like he is definitely like an old soul actor as a child. Like he's clearly 12 or 13 or 14, but he acts like he's in his 20s or 30s. He has that air about him. Even that first line he delivers, which I love, I just said, please don't ruin my childhood. There's nothing childish about the way he delivers it or says it. It's like a full adult in a child's body delivering that line, and he does it the whole movie.
That's great.
Yep.
And the calmness which he delivers lines to both his dad and his mom. You know.
Yeah.
When I can't remember the line when he tells her that it's just like, you know, it's something about your insecurity, and that's why you won't let me go with him or something like that. And then later he tells his dad, you know,
that was great.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time before he throws it away throws it all away on some tramp. He's like, well, that's one theory.
yeah, that was great.
Just he's the unfiltered voice of a child. But if a child had an adult's experience and wisdom, basically. So it's another great character.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. You think that's anything else you guys want to add?
No.
Right. We'll do our final rating here. So we have the two different rating systems. We have first we'll do 5 out of 5 just as a movie. Do you like do you love it? Like how do you feel about the movie? Particularly like Prax, you hadn't seen this in a while, or like you didn't realize you had seen it. So like where it's just as a movie, where do you fall? Obviously Ryan is a 5 out of 5. I already figured that out.
Yeah, definitely.
So what about you, Prax?
So I'm not going to do this like comparing it to other films that I may have rated highly, because then I could it'd be hard to keep a scale, because my top 5 would only be allowed to be 5-star. But I figure I could have many 4 and 5-star films, but then have like a top 1, a top
definitely.
5, you know, things like that. So I definitely have to give it like 4 out of 5, because I think the pacing is excellent. You know, at no point in the film am I like checking my watch. I'm never confused about the story and like what's trying to be communicated through it. I think the characters in it are believable and rich, and allow for personal reflection. You know, to look internally and say, of all these flawed presentations of the human condition, you know, where can I see myself in them? You know, where am I acting nobly or not like them? And that's always, whenever I'm watching a film that makes me reflect, that's going to give it a higher rating. So I definitely give it 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason I'd back off is not because I have any complaints, just because I'd reserve 5 for like the cream of the crop.
Fair enough.
Cool. I'm going to give it 5 stars, and you're wrong. All right. So, and before we go to the Libertarian rating, I got to cut in and remember one more thing. Even Rob Lowe's assistant sucks. Like, he's just this weird kind of douchey character, and then they throw in that one line where he like says like an inside joke to the other guy that's just this horrific crap, and it's just like, what? Like, it's just I'd forgotten about him. I was like, oh yeah, he sucks too. Like everyone sucks.
Yeah.
Some people are just more entertaining, so you forget about the fact that they suck. It's just a good performance, which is sort of being. I'm tying this back to the 5 stars. Here we go. Yeah. They're just great performances that make you forget that they're all terrible people because of the way they deliver things. You know, like BR's outrage and it's just like, and you know, Robert Duvall is like a circus. Like it's like, you can't believe you're seeing this character, and you see it the same way Nick does. Like, oh, this guy's real. He's really doing this on screen right now. Like it's hilarious for that reason.
Yes. So
tying it back in, that's why I give it 5 stars. So finally, I think this is gonna be a pretty easy one. We like to give it our Rothbard scale out of 5 Rothbards. How libertarian is this movie? Ryan, go ahead, but I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say.
I would call this a 5 out of 5 Rothbards movie. I do think this is an extremely libertarian film. I think all of the advocacy for freedom of choice is there. It makes you root for a lobbyist, which is obviously in the real world, lobbyists are responsible for some pretty awful things, but even despite that, the principles are there. So definitely 5 out of 5 Rothbards.
Right.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for us, I think, unless we end up reviewing a movie that doesn't even fit the channel's theme. I don't know if we'll ever give a movie less than 5 Rothbards because, I mean, V for Vendetta, 5. I mean, like, no contest, so.
Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, was 3. I think we gave that one a 3. There was another movie we did. I can't remember at this point. It's been so long. PCU.
But the director's cut is a 4. The director's cut of Muppet Christmas Carol is.
Oh
4.
yeah, because they put the song in there. That's important.
Yeah,
you gotta
right.
Make sure that's like a 3.5 or 4. Definitely. The original one's like a 1.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, 5 all the way. I mean, it sits among good company with Dallas Buyers Club, as was previously mentioned, and V for Vendetta. It just it doesn't get much better than this in terms of like libertarian cinema. Rothbardian.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm involved with you guys. 5 out of 5 Rothbards for the message, and what I love about it is it doesn't really become a 5 out of 5 until he delivers that line at the end. Like it's all hinting at it until he says, "If he really wants to smoke, I'll buy him his first pack." It becomes the best libertarian movie, like or a candidate in that one line. Everything else is just this amorphous setup, and it comes to a focus, and that one line is like, "Oh yes, freedom of choice. People should be responsible for themselves." All happens right here.
Which is absolute consistency.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that even this person who I love very much and I want only the best for and I want to see live to a ripe old age in good health, if they choose as an individual who is of an age who can choose to do that, they choose to do that, then I'll support them. Now, he could say, and maybe I'll consider myself a failed parent. But I will failing in my parenting. But absolutely, that's it. He brings it home, and he earns his 5th Rothbard with that closing.
Yep. He does start with that though too. He mentions like it starts with our education. It starts with parents like educating your children. I think he unfortunately throws it to teachers, but
yeah.
I mean, we're wrapping up here, but reminded me of like when he has to like quell the teacher in the beginning. He's like, "Are you saying smoking's good?" And she's like, "Oh God!" And he's like, "No, relax. That's not what we're gonna do. We're not doing that."
Yeah.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed this discussion. I think
absolutely.
And obviously, this movie. Ryan, thank you for finally being able to come out and hang with us. We were supposed to do this like 3 months ago, but
no problem.
A lot of things have happened since then. Ryan, do you want to go ahead and plug your channels and your Twitter and everything?
Yeah, so every Monday night at 8 p.m. Central over at twitch.tv/Valor Studios, I have a talk show called Rollin Bones with Ryan Howard, where I discuss tabletop role-playing games with a guest, and that guest rotates every week. It's brand new to Valor Studios. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but it's now available exclusively at twitch.tv/Valor Studios. And I hope you guys will come out if you're, into role-playing games, into D&D, into anything like that. It's definitely the show for you.
Fantastic. And we, in fact, have a D&D campaign we are doing with Ryan that someday we will pick up again, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of things, along with him coming on for this episode, a lot of things went by the wayside that have kept us from being able to return to that campaign with Joe and John Page of Project Full Blade. So hopefully we can get back to that again soon.
Really want to. Really looking forward to it.
But thank you again, Ryan, for coming on.
No problem.
And Crax and I will be back next week, probably just playing Bad Rocket League again. We are hoping to have the Shagsworth back on again at some point soon. We'll hopefully get to that. Hopefully get that locked down. But in the meantime here, we'll see you next Tuesday, and hope, Ryan, you can help send us off here. Don't forget to love the game.